Okay, welcome everyone, and out tonight to the Niagara Peninsula branch of the Ontario Ancestors. So before we get started tonight, we've got a few slides that I just want to share with you, and then we will get started in what we're doing. So just some basic housekeeping. There is a closed caption button that is available for those who are hard of hearing. You will find that down in the bottom of your toolbar. You could just click on that and the closed caption is there. As well, I would encourage you, if you are not on our Facebook group or on our Twitter account, I would check them out. There's lots of things going on for the branch on those social media channels. We always like to promote other branches within our organization as well for the different webinars that is going on. Tomorrow, you've got two branches actually speaking. Kingston on the records of migration and settlement at the Archives of Ontario, and our evolving Canadian story. And then on Sunday, we have the Wellington branch, a showcase of Wellington people and places. So that should be some great information if you've got some families or ancestors in that area as well. We have some upcoming branch webinars. Next month, we're going to be talking about local Niagara online resources for your research. I did this talk for the Thorold Historical Society, well, before COVID, and it was a great, the talk actually turned out really well. There is a lot of hidden online resources local to Niagara that we would like to share with you. So if you'd like to learn more about them, absolutely book that time to come. And then again, we have the Wainfleet 9. And this webinar is focused around Remembrance Day and the importance of that. And our guest speaker will be speaking about 9 soldiers from the Wainfleet area that went off to serve. So let's see here. One thing we would like to do, and we have a project that's ongoing on our website. Recently, we released a survey to our members and the genealogical community. And one of the things in the survey was about digitization and transcribing. And we have some volunteers that are working away at the digitization, but we're starting to get backed up a little bit on our website for crowd transcribing projects. This deals with the city of Thorold. Here's just a small selection of them, but collector rolls, assessment rolls, police files. We've even got public school census records as well. So this is a great opportunity to contribute to genealogical work within the branch and to make these records available for others, and actually giving you firsthand access to this information. Finally, we have some new videos on our website. We have Lois Johnson, who is a member of the branch council, is working through creating videos that deal with the Niagara area. So the one video is using the Internet Archive, and the other one is land records with known lot and concession. And that lot and concession was really good. And I'm just gonna say, I think she kind of made it around me because I simply just couldn't wrap my head around, okay, if I knew what the lot and concession, how do I find the records online? And this video that Lois did is a fantastic step-by-step process of, getting that lot, getting that concession, and continuing on with that. So if you haven't had an opportunity to visit the Niagara Peninsula Branch's website, I would do so, as there's new videos, there's transcribing projects that are ongoing. Just recently, as of today, we've updated the master index and probably added another 10,000 lines, 10,000 records of people that you can access and, figure out where these records are. So with that, I didn't want to take up a whole lot of our time. I know our speaker has a full plate, as he's got some challenges looking for land records in the Niagara region. So Ken is with us tonight. He's going to be speaking on Ontario land records. Where are they online, especially in concern to Niagara? So Ken, it's all yours, and I will just stop my share.
Okay. And let me start my presentation. Give me a second. All these buttons you have to click with technology is always horrible. Okay, folks. Thank you all for showing up this evening for my presentation. In this presentation, Ontario land records, where are they online? We're going to take a look at the various online resources we can use to find the rural addresses where our ancestors live. Then we will look at using on-land and family search to find those useful instruments describing the land transactions. I'm focusing on the online resources since COVID-19 has made it challenging, if not nearly impossible, to visit libraries and archives like we used to. Throughout this presentation, I will be using people connected to my own family tree in one way or another. A few will be from Lanark County, while a majority will be in Welland County. There is a lot of material to cover, so I'll dive right in. So, what resources are there? In the first part, we're going to look at those resources to find the concession lot where our ancestors lived. Now, it might not be a concession and lot, it might be just a lot. It could also be a lot with a range number. It all depends on the township and county. And more importantly, in these times when visiting a library and archive can be challenging, what ones can we find online? My first place to start to locate the family on the ground is via the census enumerations. The population schedules for the decennial census enumerations from 1851 to 1921 have mostly survived. However, only the 1851-52, 1861, 1871, and 1901 enumerations have location schedules that have survived. On the screen, the dates beside each year is when the census started. So even though we're supposed to start in 1851, we actually start in 1852. More importantly, not all sub-districts have survived. If you can't find your ancestor in the census, check the districts and sub-districts listing on the Library and Archives Canada site for that year. The records for the sub-district they were possibly living in may have been lost to the ravages of time. For example, if you had family residing in Lambton County for the 1851-52 census, you're almost out of luck, since almost none of those census records have survived. For example, here's what is missing and also available for linking and dwelling counties for 1851-52 census. Finding the location recorded in the enumeration varies, so I'll be going through each one. As an aside, I'll be using Ancestry to find the census records. Why Ancestry and not Library Archives Canada or Family Search? Honestly, I find the search system on Ancestry to be superior once you get used to it. The index on Library and Archives Canada site actually makes use of the uncorrected index from Ancestry. And the LAC search system is just not as forgiving when it comes to name variations. For Family Search, although it is free, it doesn't have images for all the census enumerations to view from home. So it becomes a two-step approach of looking up a name on Family Search and then looking up the image on Library and Archives Canada. In this example, I'll be looking for my fourth great grandfather, Alexander Fraser, in the 1851-52 census of Canada West. For that census, you first need to find the family on the ground, so to speak, to make sure you have the right head of household. In my case, there are actually several Alexander Frasers in Lanark County at that time. I've started by going to the 1851 census of Canada East, Canada West, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia search page on Ancestry to start my search. I've just entered in the first and last names and Lanark, Ontario, Canada as the place they lived. And yes, the Jeans, and Trasers are actually Fraser, but the handwriting is a bit of a challenge. So the index transcription created for Ancestry is really way off. Corrections are being submitted to Ancestry and they were accepted. So they also show up as indexed under the Fraser surname. Through my research, I know that my Alexander Fraser isn't the Esquire. That Alexander Fraser had the occupation of Colonel Fraser, and he was a colonel in the Lanark militia. This has led to much confusion in the research of my family by others, and I'm still working on straightening out some of the military record issues. My Alexander Fraser is the Alexander Traser in this transcription. And here they are. It is also sometimes useful to know who the neighbors are to make sure you are looking at the right family in the agricultural schedule. In this case, they are John Hunter and Evan Griffith. So going back to the search, I sort of had to cheat here to find my Alexander Fraser. Since the last name is actually recorded as Jeans. Why Jeans? Well, since I couldn't find him under Fraser, I tried one of the horrible mistranscribed variations I found for him. I could have searched for one of his neighbors, something I've actually had to do before. To only see the agricultural schedule results for the 1851-52 census, add the word agricultural to the keyword search box and have it be an exact match. This is what popped up in my search, and that first Alexander Jeans is the one I want, since I know my guy isn't that Esquire. And here's the snippet. And there he is with John Hunter listed before him and Evan Griffith right after. So I know I have the right Alexander Fraser. We also now know where he is on the ground. He resides at 2W12, or translated into something understandable, second concession, west half of lot 12. Since the subdistrict name just so happens to be the township name, in this case, I also know the township is Drummond in Lanark County. It's not that hard for the 1851-52 census. 1861 census of Canada West, we're actually going to follow the same process. But here I'll be searching for John Schreiner, the second great-grandfather of one of my uncles through marriage. From my research, I know he should be residing in Welland County in 1861. You might also notice that one of the returned results doesn't have birth details and states all places agricultural. This is the agricultural schedule. But again, we need to make sure we have the right family by looking at the population schedule first. There are a few possible John Shriners listed with birth years, but since I know that mine was born about 1811, I'm fairly certain I know which one I'll look at in the population schedule, just to make sure I have the right family and the transcriber hasn't messed up the birth years. So I found them on the population schedule, and after looking at that entry for John Schreiner, born about 1810, and knowing the family members, I know I have the right family. And there is a James Morton before the Schreiner household that I'm interested in. I'll make note of that. You'll find out why in a moment. We could change our search to filter only by the exact keyword agricultural, but since the agricultural schedule really stands out, I don't need to do so. If there are multiple John Shriners listed in the agricultural schedules, we might need to look at each one in turn to find the right property. Now, most of the time, the enumerator puts the enumeration district, township or village, and the county at the top of the form to help us confirm we are looking at the right location. This enumerator didn't, to my frustration. So when I did find John Schreiner, I wondered, is this the right person in the agricultural schedule? And it is why it's important to keep track of who might be before or after the household in which you're interested. Here we see John Schreiner, and the person above is that James Morton we saw in the population schedule. So it looks like we had the correct head of household in the agricultural schedule. One gotcha, and this is a big gotcha, which I found for most of the townships in Welland County. They didn't use concession and lots to describe the location of the property. They only used lot numbers. Here we can see that John Schreiner is on lot 27 in Thurl Township with a total of 84 acres with a value of $4,000 or pounds. I never did quite look up which value that was. So we're off to the 1871 census. Again, I'm going to search for John Schreiner in Welland County, but this time in the 1871 census of Canada. Like in the 1861 census, we find several John Shriners, but that John Schreiner who was born in 1881 looks to be a really good candidate. So pull up the population schedule, and here's the page with the family. And it looks to be the right family again. Notice we are looking at Schedule 1, the nominal return of the living, aka the population schedule. The 1871 census is unusual in that all 9 schedules have survived and were microfilmed and were even digitized. The schedule we want to look at is Schedule 4, the return of cultivated land, of field products, and of plants and fruit. Commonly we call that the agricultural schedule. By the way, for the 1871 census, Schedule 2 is the nominal return of the deaths within the last 12 months. So if you can't find an Ontario civil death registration for someone who died between April 1870 and April 1871, you just might find them in Schedule 2. But we're not going to do that in this presentation. To get to the other schedules, we just move through the images using the left and right arrows on the screen until we get to Schedule 4. But first, we need to record a few things down. You see, unlike the 1851-52 and 1861 population schedules and agricultural schedules, the 1871 census tracks the people by the page and line they are found in the population schedule. Here, John, the head of household, is found on page 41, line 8, subdistrict H2, Thorold, in Welland District. To confirm that district and subdistrict, since it's not written on the top of the page like they were supposed to do, I had to check the first page of the subdistrict. And that's about 20 or so slides before. You might also want to write down the line numbers of the other heads of household on that page as a verification step. In this case, there is only one other household with a dwelling number, and it's found on line 14. So we move through the images using the right button. And in the case of Thorold, it was about 12 images before getting to the start of Schedule 4. But the number of images to click through all depends on the size of the subdistrict. In some, I've had to go through 60 different pages to get to Schedule 4. Notice the first column doesn't have a name, but instead the page and line number from the population schedule. Now we just need to find page 41, line 8 in that list. A few more pages further, and there is the entry for his land. All kinds of interesting details about wheat growing, root crops such as potatoes, turnips, hay crops, plants and fruits like apples and pounds of maple sugar, all kinds of things like that. But at least right now, we're interested in where the land is located. And here we can see the land is found at lot 27 and 28. He owns the property with 94 acres occupied, 84 acres improved, and 30 acres in pasture. Instead of an O for owning the property, it could also have stated T for tenants. There isn't any schedules available for the 1881 and 1891 census that survived today, but we do have the 1901 census. We have Schedule 1 for the population schedule, the one everybody uses. Schedule 2 has survived and has the buildings and lands, churches and schools. The 1901 census of Canada is very similar to the 1871 census, where you first have to find the family in the population census, write down the page and line of the head of household. So I'm looking for Nettie Eliza Schreiner, my uncle's grandmother. And there is only one in all of Ontario. I was surprised. And she is residing in Stamford, subdistrict of Welland District. Here she is, living with her parents, Francis and Mary Schreiner. Like the 1871 census, we need to record the page number, 5 in this case, and the line number of the head of household, 27. Remember, it isn't the family number we need to record, but the line number on that page. Just like with the 1871 census, we move through the images until we get to Schedule 2 and the right page with the information for page 5, line 27. However, the big gotcha with the 1901 census and how they were put on microfilm is that Schedule 2 was generally filmed before Schedule 1. So we have to move backwards through the images. I found the household she was in Schedule 1 on image 21 on Ancestry, and image 16 for Schedule 2. Confusing? You bet, especially since I got it wrong the first time I ever gave this presentation. Now I generally write down not just the page and line number of the household I'm interested in, but the ones around it on the page just to make sure I'm looking at the right page and schedule too. And I'll sometimes make note of who did this census as a triple check to make sure I'm looking at the right page. Once you're burned once, you get a little more cautious. Here, Nettie's family is residing on lots 101 and 102 in Stamford Township. And that CWBS in that inhabited column, it stands for what the house is constructed of: composite, wood, brick, or stone. Other than the censuses, there are other resources we can use. For the city and county directories for Ontario, I always head over first to the Ancestor Hunt. In addition to listings for free online directories, there's newspapers, yearbooks, and all kinds of other links. This is just a partial listing for Welland County. Some places have many more, others, well, not so much. And don't forget to check your local libraries and archives for online copies also. And the directories also vary in terms of content. In the 1888 Union Publishing Company's Farmers and Business Directory for the counties of Brant, Haldimand, Halton, Lincoln, Welland, and Wentford, I was able to find several Shriners in Thorold Township. And it gives the location of where it can be found, including Francis in Thorold on lot 27 and John on lot 28. On Ancestry, there's the Ontario Canada Voters List collection. The coverage is spotty as what has survived, but you might get lucky. Here's the first page of the voters list for the township of West Oxford in 1876. And the BF that's listed as part of the concession stands for broken front. So it's probably along a river or a lake. You can also find voters lists on the Canadiana site, hosted by the Canadian Research Knowledge Network. I was able to find over 1,000 individual entries in the Canadiana catalog for various places and times for voters registrations. Here, searching using the subject of voting registers and the place Goderich. After a bit of playing around, I was able to use various filters such as not including results from individual issues and searching only monographs to focus in on that type of collection. There's also early voters lists that have been published in newspapers. Here's an extract from the list from November 7th, 1844 edition of the Brockville Recorder of those who voted in the polls in the county of Leeds on the 21st and 22nd of October, 1844. And it was taken from several poll books. I found this actually through the newspaper collection on MyHeritage. And they actually recorded the lot and concession. And this is a line for Luke McMullen, my third great grandfather in Elmsley, where it's recorded that he resided on lot 27, concession 7. His brother, just above him, recorded as being in the rear part of lot 27, concession 7. Unlike census enumerations, which were carried out at the highest level of government, such as a province of Canada or Dominion of Canada, the assessment rolls were generally done at the municipal or township levels. Some can be found at the Archives of Ontario. For that, you'll want to check out the Research Guide 209, Finding Municipal Records. Many can be found in local archives, so check with your local historical and genealogical society to learn where they may be found, if they have them. However, there are also assessment rolls found on Family Search for a number of municipalities and townships. To find them, use the catalog on Family Search. Either go to the county or township catalog and select taxation. as the subject. Alternately, like what I did here, you can search for the title assessment roles with the subject of Ontario. And this is just a partial list of what may be found. Some are viewable from home, but unfortunately, some of them may only be viewable from the Family History Center when they do open up. Here's an example of what may be found for a township or town. In this case, is for St. Catharines in Lincoln County, which had assessment rolls from 1854 to 1899 online. Here is an example of the assessment for a town. You can see you have the occupant's name, the owner of the property if it isn't by the occupant, and the address. And most of the time you won't find the number of a house, unfortunately, in an urban environment, but you may find the lot number on the street. Maps are also a useful resource, not only for pinning a location of someone on the map, but possibly even find them listed on a map. The Canadian County Atlas Digital Project has digitized the maps from the Illustrated Historical Atlas books for Ontario. Depending on the township, quite possibly only a few names may be recorded on these maps. Here is an example for Thorold. Now, it's not an eye test. You're not expected to read this. However, I have zoomed in to show you where John Schreiner resided on lot 27, and I've added a star to indicate where he is. Depending on the map, names may or may not be present. For some maps, names were only included by subscription. The Norman B. Leventhal Maps Center collection only has a few maps of interest to us in Ontario, and they mainly cover Eastern Ontario. They were created in the 1860s. Unlike the illustrated historical maps, almost all the lots have names on them. Here's the map for Lanark and Renfrew, but don't strain your eyes trying to read the names. When you click on the map, a new window opens up. You can zoom right in. Here, it is zoomed in on North Elmsley. Again, I've put a star on the lot, and this is where Luke McMullen, my third great grandfather, resided in 1863. Another collection is the Ontario Historical County Maps Project, which is maps for many parts of Ontario. Click on a county that sort of looks like there's a map colored in, or even one where at least there's a name, to display a pop-up menu with a link to view or download the scanned images to your computer. One of my favorite sites for Ontario maps is the Heritage Property Index site. You can click on the various counties to start drilling down to the township level maps. Here is part of the landing page for Drummond Township in Lanark County. You can select the various maps along with possible directories and censuses. I selected the pre-Confederation patent maps, and one of them had this. Yes, it is a challenge to read this, but that's because it isn't full size, but only 25% zoomed. At 100%, I can actually find Alexander Fraser, my fourth great grandfather, mentioned on concession 2, lot 16, his original grant. Don't forget about wills and estate files for clues. Here are 2 extracts from the will of my Alexander Fraser. Top one has Alexander leaving the west half of lot 12 in the second concession of the township of Drummond to his son John. But the second extract revealed a surprise. Alexander also had land in the township of South Sherbrooke in Lanark County that he left to his son Thomas. Until I started writing this presentation, I didn't even have a clue into these additional lots of land that Alexander owned. Civil birth, marriage, and death registrations can sometimes have the place of the event or where the informant resided listed. Don't forget about doing a Google search using the name of the county and township along with the word map to see what appears. In my case, it was Drummond Township in Lanark. I came across their Come Celebrate 200 Years event from Lanark County Tourism. There's a searchable database. It even shows locations using present-day Google Maps. Clicking on the property, here's the information from that resource for Alexander's original land grant. Yep, another set of records, if I didn't have them, might want to chase down. And of course, library and archives land records databases may also shed some light on where the family originally settled, especially if it was a grant or a petition that was made. Okay, everybody take a deep breath because there's even more to find. With what we have learned from the various records, we now know where John Schreiner had his property in Welland County. So now we're off to the sometimes feared and oftentimes dreaded Ontario Land Property Records site, OnLand. Hopefully by the end of this section, you'll be a little more comfortable with using this useful resource. Here's the starting screen for searching the Ontario Land Property Records. You don't need a login or to register to use the features I'll be looking at. But before we start using the site, notice this little detail concerning their search hours. And yes, there are search hours. Even worse, the hours we can't search are those hours that we as genealogists often get the time to do our research, especially on weekends. Yeah, I've been bitten by this several times when I wanted to do my research. So in addition to using abstract index books on OnLand, I'll be covering using the abstract index books available on Family Search. We're going to start the search, and there are so many ways you can start. However, I'm going to lead you down the path using the method I use most often. Since we're going to be using historical books, I click on historical books in the upper right corner. Once we click on the link, we get prompted to type in the name of the city, town, or the land registry office. I will normally start by typing in the name of the land registry office that covers the area. Most of the time, it is the name of the old county. But there are a few exceptions, such as Toronto metropolitan area and the Niagara area, which is divided into north and south, or Lincoln and Welland counties. If I'm sure of which land registry office covers the area I'm interested in, I will type in the name of the closest city or town. For example, if I type in Thorold in Welland County, it will tell me that the office is Niagara South, Niagara 30, Eller Road 59. So, since I'm looking for that land registry office in Niagara South, I just start typing Niagara. It displays Niagara North and Niagara South, along with municipalities of Niagara Falls and Niagara on the Lake. I then click on the land registry office I want, in this case, Niagara South. It fills in the details. I then just click apply to bring up the land registry office search page for Niagara South. On this screen, you can search by the property descriptions, such as concession lot, along with other descriptions of the property, such as plan, section, condo, or parcel. However, I've been burned so many times trying to do that, I don't bother. Instead, I just click the Browse Books or Browse All Books link. It might be a little more work, but it gives me a lot more flexibility in the next set of steps. When we select Browse All Books, whether it be that link or by the way of the Browse Books tabs besides search books, we get brought to this screen or something similar. There may be other historical books listed in addition to the abstract parcel book register book, such as General Register Index, Bylaw Index, Canada Land Index, retakes. I've seen up to 8 books, and there's probably more available. But we want the abstract parcel register. So we're going to click on that link. And this is where everybody starts to freak out. Just for a Niagara South Land Registry Office, there are 2,943 books. How are you going to find that one book you want? All is not lost, for we can use the filter by feature. Once you click in that filter by box, a list of townships and municipalities appear as a selection menu. I selected Thorold from that list, and it is now down to, okay, it is only down to 242 books. It is a lot, but that's still better than almost 3,000. As an aside, as I looked through the various books for Thorold, I quickly realized that On Land doesn't distinguish between Thorold the village and Thorold the township. There are 2 sets of Book A, one in 2 parts, page 1 to 259, and pages 260 to 520, and another with Book A with pages 1 to 534. Confused? Oh God, so was I yesterday and this morning as I was updating this presentation. But the more I looked through the books for Welland County, the more I realized that this is probably one of those worst case scenarios for researching land records in Ontario. So if you can figure this all out, the rest of Ontario will almost seem easy. Here, I'm just going to sort of walk you through some of the information. Here I am at the cover page for Drummond Township of Lanark County, concessions 1 and 2. I'm going to zoom into the book viewing part of the screen, since that's where we do most of our work. So let's look at the various buttons and navigation aids. First, along the left side, we have the full screen. And to get out of the full screen view of the book, hit the escape button on your keyboard. Here's the rotate button to rotate the image 90 degrees clockwise. And yes, there are images that need to be rotated. Unfortunately, they need to be rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. So you have to click this button several times so you can actually view it the right way. You can click on zoom in on the page. And the book on the screen can make the text look a little bit small at times. So zooming in will make your life so much easier. And there's a zoom out button. It's grayed out at the moment, but once you zoom in, it'll be darker to indicate that you can use it. At the bottom of the page is next and previous buttons and a place to put the page number. Until relatively recently, you couldn't easily download the pages, so you take screenshots. That was annoying, but they fixed that up with the Add Current Page button to add the page you were viewing into your shopping cart. It is important to note that if you select multiple pages for ordering and download, they will be all in the same single PDF file. You can remove any of the pages from that list by clicking on the Remove button. Unless you have a legal reason for having a certified copy, you don't need to click on the Add Certified Copy button. If you do need a copy, it'll prompt you for contact information and how to is going to charge you for the fee. Have your credit card handy. When downloading copies of the pages, you need to accept the terms of service by clicking this box. It is a standard long list of terms of service, but take the time to at least glance through it at least once, twice if you need a cure for insomnia. You can then select Request Selected Pages. The first time I submitted a request, I was wanting page 187 from a book. And when I saw 187 here, I thought it was going to send me 187 pages for requested pages. Minor panic, but then I realized that the requested pages was the page number. Wasn't too bright that day. You also don't need to fill in the email address part if you don't want them to email you the copy of your order. If everything looks good, click continue. And here's your order confirmation. You can email down your receipt. I don't bother with that. You can click then download link, which will download the requested pages to your computer in PDF form. You will want to do that before leaving the screen, even if you've asked it and given the email address, still download it here just in case. The instinct is to click your browser's back button to return to where you last left off. Don't do that. This is just like a store. It causes problems for you. It just returns a 404 error. Instead, click the Return to View Book button or the Return to Historical Books search button here. The Return to View Book button will bring you back to the last page you're reviewing in the abstract parcel register book. Okay, did everybody take another deep breath? We're going to go back to look for lot 27 in Thorold Township, the property which the Schreiner family was on in the 1861 and 71 censuses. As you can see for Thorold, there are books A to C on this screen capture. The books actually go up to O for this municipality name. There are also books without letters on later pages. And these are generally for the plans within Thorold Village or later town. We're not going to delve into those books since urban areas and plans are a whole other challenge. The lettered books are generally by specific time periods. So you generally want to start with book A and you work your way through the letters to get all the details about that lot you're interested in. And you might notice that there are two book A's which start at page 1. Same with book B. Online in their catalog doesn't distinguish between the village of Thorold and the township of Thorold. As you can well imagine, this just adds to the confusion. So let's look at the first book A, which goes to page 259. And I always look for these cover pages. And really, I can't stress enough, always look for these descriptive pages, since they will describe what the book covers. In this case, this one book is for the incorporated village of Thorold. I don't want the village. I want the township. So let's look at that other book that goes from page 1 to 534. As we can see, it covers the township of Thorold. Yay, we got the right book. So for any research in Thorold, we really do have to make sure we're looking at that right set of books. And the same applies for any township in Ontario. Always check. So back to that list of books. You notice that there is an old series. Old is good for genealogy, so we probably want to start there as our starting place. So I'm going to click on the View Details button for Book A, Old Series, pages 1 to 265. In some of the abstract index books, you might actually even come across an index, like we did here, for where to find pages holding the abstract index details about the property. It's so confusing that an index actually needs to have an index. And it would seem that some lots had so many transactions for them that they had to be added at the end of the book. But for lot 27, it was fairly easy to find the property, since it appears that only page 27 is the only page we have to look at. Keep in mind, it is page 27, not image 27 on land. And here are the property details. Starting from when the patent was first issued in 1798 to when John Schreiner had a mortgage in 1865. And there's more, you want to look maybe book B to find what happens later. What do we need to write down if we're going to look for the instruments later on? You want to record the instrument number. In some books, they also give a book letter and page, so jot those down since they may save us time later. Write down the dates, both when the transaction occurred and when it was recorded. The instruments in the land books are in order of when they were recorded. That may be days, weeks, months. I've even seen years later. Write down the names of the people involved, the grantor and grantee. So when you do come to the instrument, you can verify it is the right one. There are two specific instruments I want to look at later. The first is the original bargain and sale, or B&S, from George Miller to Daniel Schreiner, since that's when the property comes into the Schreiner family. It is instrument 6828, found in Book A, page 97, dated 21st March 1826, and recorded on 26 May 1826 between George Miller and Daniel Schreiner. The second is a will. Just a sec. A will? Yep. Wills may be found in land record books if they were the means to transfer land between people when someone died. It is instrument 7970, found in Book A, page 290, dated 24 September 1828, and recorded on 2 July 1830, with George and John Schreiner listed as recipients. Of course, I'd want to read all the other transactions, such as the one from John Schreiner at Ux, or and wife, to the Queen. I'd also want to do the same process in Book A with pages 1 to 534 and repeat the process in all the other books, just to see until the property is no longer in the family. What if you want to look through those abstract books when on land is closed for the night? For that, we need to use Family Search. Many, if not all of you, should be familiar with Family Search. You will need to get your free account on FamilySearch.org to view those images. And we'll be using the catalog to find the land records we are interested in. To start with, from the main page, click on Search, and then the menu bar then for Catalog. This will bring you to the Catalog search page in Family Search. The catalog is a powerful tool to help you find those unindexed digitized microfilms that may uncover more about the history of your ancestors. But I'm not going to delve into the catalog to uncover those treasures today. Instead, we're going to stay focused on the task at hand. In the search, in the catalog search, for place, I've typed the county name, going from largest jurisdiction to smallest. So it's Canada, Canada, Ontario, Welland. And then click on the search button to start that search. Here are examples of various land and property collections from two different counties in Ontario. Lanark on the left, Welland on the right. Both have general registers. This is where transcripts of wills, administrations, indentures, etc. have been filed that involved land transactions. Remember, these aren't the original documents, but transcriptions copied into the books. They also have the all-valuable land record books. These books contain the memorials and instruments involving the land transactions. What about this little one here? Why are land records for Lees County, Johnson District included in Lanark County? Johnson District covered the counties of Lees, Grenville, Lanark, Renfrew, and parts of Carleton in the early history of what later became Ontario. So yes, the borders and assignments of various townships, counties, and districts changed over time. And guess what? Family Search also has copies of the land index books we found on land. Now, they only go up to about 1840s, 1850s, but since we're looking at land from the mid to late 1800s, they'll do quite nicely. Well, And you notice this? Um, Welland's abstract books are in the land and property indexes set, not the land and property set. Only a few of the counties have this layout. Most of the time, the abstract books are in the main land and property section of the catalog. Well, clicking on the land abstract books, 1796 to 1958 for Welland catalog entry, I found a number of possible books to look through. Unlike on land, Family Search actually tells you which ones are for the township and which ones are for the village and later town of Thorold. I want the earliest books for Thorold Township. This column tells us you can view this collection from the comfort of your home. If it has a key symbol above the camera, we would have to wait until the Family History Center is open, since those microfilms are restricted to being viewed only from those places or their affiliates. If instead of a camera, it showed a microfilm reel, then we'd have to wait until it was digitized. And they are making a lot of progress on digitizing those microfilms. But no worry, the format icon is displayed just the camera, so we can view it from home. I'll click on the camera icon to view that book. If you've never seen this on Family Search, this is how they show you the images from a digitized microfilm or other work. You can double click on individual images to make it fill up the viewing screen. But first, a quick overview of some of the navigation controls. On the left side of the screen, we have a set of icons to help us view the images. You can zoom in and out. View just the highlighted page. When viewing the highlighted image, this icon changes to one that you can click to return to this mass view. You can make the viewing window full screen. And like on land, to get out of full screen mode, hit the escape key. So let's look at that first title card. Once you get used to using Family Search, these cards will be really easy to pick out from all those thumbnail images. As you can see, this collection starts with Abstract Index A for the Township of Thorold in Welland County. If you're looking for Abstract Index B, we probably go back to the view showing the multiple images, scroll through the thumbnail images until we see another similar slide. I think we're good to go. Use the arrows at the top of the viewing window to move through the images. I could also type in a page number. But fairly quickly, I was able to get to the page for lot 27. And it just looks like that page from the image on land. Depending on the townships, sometimes on land will be easier to use. Other times, it'll be Family Search. And actually, in this case, Family Search is so much easier. Also, depending on the registry office, and if this is a copy of a copy of a copy, you may find the mortgage or mort and discharge DM lines crossed out. Okay, we've made it this far. We want to now look at the instruments, what we really want to find. Here are some definitions, and it's in the handout, so you don't just mass scribble these down. Bargain and sale, along with deed entries, are the most common. But you will find other instruments and memorials recorded in the book. The last one, a will, can be found in the land books prior to 1860s. After 1850s, 1860s, they'll usually be found in the general register books. So now we're going to see if we can find the bargain and sale from George Miller to Daniel Schreiner. Registration number 6828 in Book A, page 197 in Thorold Township, Welland County, at least according to the abstract index on land and Family Search. So back to the catalog listing, I go for the land and property group of collections. I'm going to look at the land records of Welland County, 1796, 1922. And mainly because it encompasses a larger period of time. I could have looked also at the land records 1796 to 1840 collection, but I decided to start with the one specific to Welland. You know that book A, page 97 for the instrument and registration number for number 6828 in the abstract parcel register book? The A is the volume, except there are several volume A's listed. This is why writing those details down really pays off. We know that instrument 6828 was registered in 1826, and only one collection has that date range with that volume or book A. So I'm going to click on the camera icon to bring up the viewing page of the digitized records. Much like the lot and abstract index book, we just do the same process in the land books. And it actually didn't take me that long to find page 197 in the book. And there it is at the bottom. Here's the start of instrument 6828 from George Miller to Daniel Schreiner. And it continues on to the next page. So always remember to check that next page. And doing the exact same process for Daniel Schreiner's will, instrument 7970. Since this isn't an eye exam, I'm not going to ask you to read it, but I'll zoom into the part showing why it was copied into the land book. Here we can read that he is giving his sons George and John the whole of lot 27 and east half of lot 28 in the township of Thorold. Since it is a transcription from the original will, you will also probably want to order the probate or surrogate court estate files for Daniel from the Archives of Ontario, just to double check everything. But it is a full copy of the will. So I also learned that his daughter Elizabeth received a black walnut chest, which was his late wife's. If we didn't know when Daniel's wife died, we now know is before 24 September 1828 when he made out his will. George and John, sons, in addition to receiving the land, also received a yoke of oxen. His daughters Elizabeth and Anne Margaret also got a cow each, a feather bed, and bedding. But he also mentions three daughters in his will. For a clue, there we find he appoints his son-in-law, Andrew Hansel of Thorold, as one of the executors. To find the third daughter's name, we can see if there are church records available for a marriage between a Schreiner and a Hansel. Since now the land record books, especially the earlier books, weren't exactly standardized in how they were laid out, we can sometimes use this to our advantage. Here's an example from the Land Records 1796 to 1840 collection for Lincoln County. The books are for Upper Canada prior to the creation of Canada West. In the case for Lincoln County, we have indexes created based on the grantor and grantee. We didn't need to know the lotting accession. Here's an example of a page from the index from the S section of that index. Note though, although all the surnames start with an S, the order within is by instrument number. So to find a John Shipman in the index, you need to look at all the pages in the S section until you see a Shipman and make sure it's the right Shipman. Like here for the probate of will for John Shipman. Just like before, we can look up the instrument number in the land record books. In this case, we weren't given the volume number letter, so we have to see which book has number 9660. And we see it's in volume O. It didn't take too long to find the instrument for John Shipman using the skills we already have. The entry is interesting since it doesn't exactly describe the land being left to John's three younger sons, William, Jacob, and George. Instead, it describes the properties as those that were left to him by his late father, Paul Shipman of Grantham, in his last will and testament. So to learn more about those lands, we would have to go back to the various indexes and see if we can find Paul Shipman's land record entry for his will or probate. Sometimes they just don't make it easy for us. Finally, there are the general register books. These came about in 1850s, 1860s, and are the catch-all for stuff involving other land transactions. You will come across entries for wills, people declaring insolvency, purchases of land, of mining rights, and other non-deed specific documents that deal with the land. At this point in time, the wills were no longer transcribed into the deed books, but into the general register books. Many of the books have a name index at the front. So I'll often look there just in case there's a name that is familiar to me. Here is one such example of an index page. We have the names indexed by grantor in one column and grantees in the next. But much like the older books, you know something about the order of the names? Shouldn't Aiton come after Anderson and Allen come before Anderson? After that first letter of the surname, they weren't listed alphabetically. They are listed in the order found in the register books. It sometimes cause a little bit of a challenge as you have to look through multiple pages to find that one magic name. I know it's an awful lot to take in 1 hour. Much like many tasks in our efforts to learn about our ancestors, the more you do it, the better and more comfortable you will get in doing the research. Just like I did today as I was preparing for it, I learned a lot about the records just for Welland. Over the past year, I've written a number of posts in my blog at Family Tree Knots on how to find the property location in censuses, and even some on how to use on land. So I really hope that this information-packed presentation has been of some value to you. Thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you very much, Ken. That was, wow, you weren't kidding. At the beginning, you were saying it was just a lot. And you were absolutely right with that. I don't have any questions. Did anybody send you any questions directly?
Oh, that means I have to actually read through all the questions.
Yeah. No,
Give me a half sack.
I haven't seen anything on my send. I'm getting a lot of thank you very much, and they learned a lot. And wow,
Yeah, one from Art Taylor.
Okay.
What is the latest available Canadian census with surviving agricultural schedule? It is actually 1901. It's not the full agricultural schedule, which we'd expect to say here's how many fruits, things like that, but it does provide you with the basic information of where the property is. For a full agricultural schedule, it's actually 1871.
Okay. I did get a question about the presentation handout. I will be, after the webinar, sending a link out to everybody that registered for this, and you can just download it directly to that. If there is nothing more on your screen,
No.
I just want to encourage you to join us in October for our online resources in the Niagara region. And once again, Ken, on behalf of the branch, thank you very much for joining us tonight and giving us lots to learn. And we will get this webinar up onto our website ASAP so you can review it again. And that's it, folks. Have a great
Just one question just came in.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Stephen Pam. Will records tell us if tenants or owners?
Oh, yes.
Yes, they can. You'll typically find that in the agricultural part, and it'll be T or O. And you can even see if the property in a lot was officially occupied. There may be squatters on them, of course.
Yeah.
So the records can always read going across the page to make sure you see all the details.
Right.
And there's one from Dennis. Someone's asking about costs
Yeah. Costs of on land.
on land. To get a copy of an instrument, it is $3.39. Go to my blog on it. I actually wrote up on how to order it, because it is not it's a simple but confusing process.
Yeah. We have one more. It says, what documents support orders in council land grants?
Actually, you'll want to look at the LAC collections,
Okay.
because those are the best ones to look at. And of course, one set of documents that aren't online, which drives me crazy, is the Ontario Land Record Index, which is on microfiche that might be at a local library, might not, or an archive. And they then point you to documents that are available at the Archives of Ontario.
All right.
And if anybody has additional questions, or even if you're having a challenge, don't hesitate to drop me an email. Always willing to point you in the right direction.
Well, we appreciate that, Ken. Thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So, folks, again, we hope to see you in October, and check out the website if you get a chance. Drop us a line if you're interested in volunteering at all. And no, the Ontario Archives is not open as of this time. So have a great night, folks. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Take care all.